let's get right into it. Thank you so much, Melissa. Welcome to the stage. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. Happy Friday, Rita. I'm so glad to be here.
Happy Friday. Melissa, you're going to explain your experience and your journey much better than I ever could. We'll have more information about you in the show notes below. But before we get right into your story of who you are and what you've done, I'm curious to know what was the first brand or campaign that you ever fell in love with, and why did it resonate so deeply with you?
Well, even though we're talking about Disney, I have to say the brand that I fell in love with and identified with very early on as a kid was Barbie. Um, you
Yay,
know,
Barbie!
Barbie could be anyone or anything. And I mean, I don't know who else, I'm going to date myself, but I had the Barbie townhouse with the elevator that went up and down. It
Yes.
was, there were so many ways that I could express myself through that brand.
Mm.
And I could use it to dream and imagine and um, and really tell stories, and
Mhm.
also to build community with my friends. They would bring their Barbies over and their Barbie play sets, and we'd have Barbie City. And
Yes.
it was a brand that I had ownership of, that I could express myself through, but also that I could create community and build worlds with other people. So yeah, for
Well,
sure.
I love that. And if we take a second to talk about the Barbie brand, let's say have Barbie come in and say hello for a second, if we can help it. Hi, hi,
Hi,
hi
Barbie.
Barbie. If we can talk about the Barbie brand, it's really an interesting um, story there because it takes something that dolls, right? The idea of a doll where the doll had a character and, that was their own individual person. And it made it relatable to us as kids. Like Barbie was Barbie, but also Barbie could be you, right? And I think that story, that authenticity, from the story to the persona itself is it's really cool. Like we should do a whole maybe separate episode diving into Barbie one day, guys. I love it. Well, tell me more. So, when we last chatted, you told me we met on Entreprenista, which is a really great community for women in business. And you told
Shout
me you
out to
live.
Entreprenista and Stephanie Carton. They built a,
Yes,
a phenomenal platform.
100%. And I will link that in the show notes because, guys, that community has been amazing for me. But you told me on a comment that you lived in Orlando near Disney actually for a while, about 8 years or so. And looking back at your time in Orlando, and I guess maybe one or two times you may have gone to Disney if you've lived there for that long, was there a particular Disney memory that you have that stands out to you as a guest from just as a guest in general?
Absolutely. So I did actually even work at Disney for a brief period of time. Like many Orlando folks in their 20s, it was a great place when I was between career jobs to go and be able to work. So I had the chance to work and see it from that side. But one of the things I was doing while I was in Orlando is I worked in radio and in radio promotions. And at that point in time, Disney had a great promotional relationship with a lot of the radio stations, and so I was invited not only as a part guest, but as a media participant to take place in one of their media weekends, which were press events that were absolutely incredible. And quite honestly, taught me a lot of the lessons that I've used throughout my career about ensuring that you're carrying message through every single touch point. The opening night of our press event, and this was built, I think, around the 20th or 25th anniversary of Magic Kingdom. But the first night was a quote homecoming celebration at Disney MGM Studios. And the way that they immediately immersed you in the theming from the get go was amazing. We were picked up in yellow school buses with drivers who were taking the role of characters, like the stereotypical bus driver you remember from your grade school days, going, I don't want to see any gum chewing. I don't want anybody talking.
No
Don't touch.
talking back there. Yeah, yeah. Love
Played
that.
the whole role. So you walked on, you came off at the front of the studios, and there was a high school band playing with the cheerleaders. And then your program for the day was an old steno notebook. And as you moved around the park, you got stickers and other things that you could add and personalize your notebook. So the more you think about it, those touches immediately put you in that world. And so every time I do any sort of go to market or product launch or anything, I think, okay, how is this going to look across every single solitary consumer touch point? How is this going to look to our team members, and how do we get them engaged, involved? How might this look to our stakeholder partners and other sorts of business partners? So it really a lesson from 1992 or 93 resonates with me still in 2024.
That's so important because I think it's a lesson that we should continually remind ourselves of regarding touch points, and one of them being more of an in-person, immersive-esque event. I think for the sales process for any go-to-market campaign or anything, I think we're so digital that sometimes we forget about those detailed, beautiful, like one-to-one experiences that can have in real life as well too, right? At least for me, I don't know.
Yeah.
I see a lot of, funnels, and the funnels are important, the content online is important, but if you can share a one-to-one immersive experience like with the brand and with another person, like that's way more memorable than any email that you could get, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, and in a lot of cases, I find when I'm working with clients that the opportunities to cross digital to physical or physical to digital get missed. I was a fractional chief marketing officer for an organization that was doing brand launches of virtual restaurants,
Yes.
and they had a partnership with a celebrity, and they were talking about how they launched that the brand online with the celebrity, and they said, oh well, we're going to have them do a posting. And I said, well, great, but let's take that posting. Can't we create a really quick site where we can collect people's phone numbers? And so we build up a text database that the day that we go live, we can text all of these folks with a video message from that celebrity announcing the brand and encouraging them to order. And they'd never thought about it. And fortunately, I said something, and I think we built a list of more than 1,000 people, and it converted by about 20% on that day to orders. So,
Wow.
it's little things like taking it from that big, oh, let's go online and announce this, or let's go on social and announce this, to, okay, but what does that look like for an individual person, and how do you translate that into a sale, or increase the chances that you're going to translate that into a sale?
Personalization is what I take away from that. We have automations now that help with some of these sales touch points, but the more you can make it feel like you're being the person that's spoken to or you were thought of, like that's such a great idea. And I think with Disney too, they do a very good job of, having a standard process or experience, but taking with moments within them to make it feel like it's a personalized one. And
Yeah.
yeah, like I would be more excited if I got a text message from a celebrity than if I just saw it online. I'd be like, oh, I know not Alicia Keys isn't really texting me, but wow, that's cool. I got a message from Alicia Keys. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's awesome. So, you've had a very incredible various brands, various levels of experience, but I would love to know, like, what drew you into brand strategy, marketing, business? Like, I don't think when you were playing with your Barbies at like 5 or whatever, you're like, I'm going to be a CMO. You know what I mean? So like, what took you there? What interested you in it?
It was, I had been flirting with the idea of marketing for a long time without ever really realizing it. When I was a kid, one of the things I loved to do was put on shows in my garage, and I'd cast my friends in the roles, and then I'd run around the neighborhood getting more people to show up and watch the show. And I didn't realize that what I was doing at that point in time was taking an idea, creating a story, and then going out and telling people why they should come and listen or watch the story. So I'd been doing it for years, but I thought originally that I was going to go into media. My degree is from Syracuse University, from the Newhouse School, in TV, radio, film management. And I thought I was going to be the general manager of a TV station or a radio station. And I very quickly figured out that although I liked radio, what I really liked was the promotion side of radio. And I was just fascinated by fandom. And I was fascinated by how I could excite and engage people and bring people together around something that they loved. In the case of radio, it was music, or it was personalities and humor. And I hit a career wall, and I started talking to people that I trusted. And I said, with this talent, where should I go? And that led me to a PR agency where PR is all about storytelling again. And I learned a lot about that, which led me to an advertising agency where, for the first time, I was writing marketing plans and competitive analysis and all of those sorts of things, and realizing, hey, I really like this and I want to go client side. So if I want to go client side, how do I learn that, and what is it about that? And so I used my radio and special events and agency experience to go into field marketing, which is local and creating those one-to-one connections. And then finally and I did that for Olive Garden. So back in Orlando at Darden Restaurants. And then I did it for Starbucks, which was a very different experience. And then
Oh yeah, that must have been so different from the two
yeah,
Olive Garden to Starbucks.
yeah,
Great brands.
Olive Garden, which was very dining experience and
Yes.
menu driven, to Starbucks, which really was about community and creating community, and also serving community and doing community level and charitable marketing. So it was two different things. And I finally got my chance to go brand side at KFC. And so my true brand training really came from KFC. And I was a brand manager there, and then a brand director there, where I had the fun of leading the family meals business and repositioning that for growth. So yeah, I love my personal mission still is in guiding discovery, and specifically guiding discovery of experiences that build shared community and enrich people's lives and make them more fulfilling. And really, that's the higher order of brand marketing. It's creating something that people see themselves in, can use to express themselves, and can use to find connection and community with other people.
And the multiplying effect of that is that naturally will increase sales, right? Like when
Exactly.
one person has an amazing experience, they'll tell another person, and then they'll post it online. And then it amplifies just kind of what you've done basically time and time
Yeah.
again. I want to point out something really cool I never thought of when you were talking about Olive Garden and Starbucks, which was the deeper strategy behind the brand itself. So I never really considered Starbucks having a community strategy or pillar to their branding or
Yeah.
marketing, or Olive Garden being that kind of group thing. So I'm sure from your many years of being awesome at what you do, you've learned like probably a few important pillars for growing brands and businesses. So from your experience, what are three key lessons that you've learned that shaped your approach to brand growth?
The first one really is being true to who you are as a brand, defining it really, really well, and then being true to it. And that sounds really easy, but it's challenging. I mean, Starbucks is a really good example. When I was there, it was very much about creating a quote third place between home and work, and um, and about the mastery of coffee. There were actual certifications that you could get in coffee. We did coffee tastings. We paired coffee with different foods, just like wine, to see if you could get different flavor notes. And if you look at the trouble that Starbucks has had recently, part of it is because they lost the identity of truly who they were as a brand and what made them unique. And that made them very vulnerable. And it made them vulnerable in a number of ways. But the one that came to mind for me really quickly was how other chains on the lower end could steal the daily coffee run business, like Dunkin' and McDonald's built incredible morning coffee businesses that took away that piece of it. And then other chains like Seven Brew have taken all of the customization and all the over the top and crazy sorts of drinks, and a large percentage of Seven Brews sales are coming from not coffee, but all of these other drinks. And so they got outflanked on both sides. And what does that leave you with? So being really intentional about defining the DNA that makes you unique and how that shows up for your customers, for your team members, and for your other business stakeholders is incredibly important. And typically, if a brand goes sideways, it's because they've lost the ability to take that DNA and make it relevant. The second one for me is that you need to truly be flexible as a brand to understand that the situation around you changes. The biggest mistake that other brands make when they go south is that they don't believe that the environment around them is ever going to change, or it's always going to be this good. And great brands are constantly looking at the consumer environment and saying, what do we have to do to continue to be relevant? Or what do we need to do? How do we need to show up? Do we need new products? Do we need to be in different places? Do we need some new services? Do we need to show up in content in different ways that truly will continue to ensure that we're good at what we do and we're true to who we are, but that we are relevant? And there are brands that are masterful at maintaining that relevance over time. Taco Bell, which is a sibling yum brand to KFC when I was there, has done a fantastic job of maintaining that relevance, because if you think about it, youth culture is probably one of the toughest things to stay ahead of, but they truly have brought in great people to lead the brand, great people to work on the brand, great partners, and they've constantly stayed relevant. And that's tough to do, but they've done it by knowing that it isn't a given that they're always going to be the leader. And they've got to figure out how to keep doing it consistently. And the third one is that you have to sweat the details. And that goes back to the first lesson I learned from Disney, is you have to sweat the details. And that can, sweating the details can look like How do you ensure that you're showing incredible love to your biggest fans on social? 2, are you going and talking to your team members on the front line and hearing what they're hearing from customers or talking about their pain points? Or are you being very intentional when you're planning your marketing and sales calendar to say, um, do we know exactly how many transactions we need? Do we know exactly what kind of ticket average we need in order to deliver against our plan? And are we certain that our plan is working, or to have the discipline to go back and see what happened? I see lots of companies and a lot of businesses that will have something that didn't work. And I say they step over the body and keep going instead of going, okay, what happened here and what truly can we learn from it? It's a, oh, that didn't work. Go on to the next. Well, maybe just by tweaking it slightly, you might actually find that it can work. Or we have something that's incredibly successful, but not for the reasons that we thought. We had the a product at Papa John's where we thought that this product was going to be the solution for our lunch business. And it was wildly successful, but it wasn't wildly successful because we attracted new customers at lunch. It was wildly successful because lots of people added it on to their existing pizza orders. So we had to dig a little bit deeper and say, ooh, what's the insight going on here that's causing the behavior to go this way when we thought it was going to go this way? So yeah, a lot of great lessons in there, but
Such
really,
great
yeah.
lessons. Yeah, and it's really because it kind of ties into a little bit with why I love what you're doing now. Like on your website, you have this strategy or philosophy of brand mining. And I feel like these three key takeaways that you're bringing us right now kind of are, in my opinion, like the stepping point to going, okay, let's look deeper than what we just see. So tell us a little bit more about why you're doing what you're doing now and a little bit more about your brand mining philosophies, if you will.
Well, it's brand DNA mining,
Yes.
and it's all based on the philosophy that I have, it has been developed through my time working with so many different brands that every element, all you need to have consistent, sustained growth in revenue, in customer engagement, and loyalty is already existing within the unique elements that differentiate your brand. And that's what I call the brand DNA. And it is what I used and started to learn initially as we were repositioning the KFC family meals business. Because the thing that KFC was always known for, even though maybe fried food was on the outs a little bit, and what we called chicken on the bone, which is the drumsticks and the wings and all of that, maybe that was slightly out of favor with trends. There was something magical about the idea that it was a real meal. It was food that looked like food that your mom cooked, and that you remember sitting down to a family dinner. There were sides, there were vegetables, there was bread. It was a complete meal. And we said, what about the mealness that is in our DNA can we use to get this business to grow again? This was in the mid aughts, and the family meals business in particular was kind of struggling. It had been either flat or declining. And I remember when I took the role, I asked a number of people around the organization, and somebody said to me, "Oh, don't worry. All you need to do with that part of the business is keep the wheels on the bus. All the growth is going to come from wings and popcorn chicken and snackables and all of these other categories. You don't have to worry. You just stabilize." But our franchisees were saying, "Hey, this is more than half of our business. why are we not focusing on growing it? And so the magic of that was saying, how do we take the mealness that we've always been known for and use that to make us relevant to a new audience? And that was when Boston Market was really on the rise. They were a hot brand, a hot concept.
I
And what were
remember
they?
that. They were
Yeah,
I remember for a time like growing I was like, "Oh, we should go there maybe instead of KFC or whatever." Interesting.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And so they were proving that there was a market for what I'll call mealness. And it was about rethinking how we packaged our product and how we promoted it. And so we took that DNA and we looked at the consumer context around us and we said, okay, we're talking about this as an 8-piece meal or a 10-piece meal or whatever. And customers don't know how to deal with it. Well, 8 pieces of chicken, I got to feed a family of 4. That's what I have to do.
Right.
So tell me how I can do that. So we started talking about the fact that this was home meal replacement for moms. And we took a really magical insight that we got from a focus group where a mom said, I really worry about the fact that the family dinner that I remember from my youth is endangered and could disappear. And that's when the hair on our arms stood up on end, and we said, "Oh, there's something here. We can do something
Yes.
with this." And we brought we did a campaign for 3 years called Bring Back Dinner. And
Wow.
the idea of making sure that that DNA is activated across all sorts of touch points. I built at the time, the first product specific website that we had at KFC. And it was designed to do a couple of things very practically. We had a calculator on there. If you're feeding a family of 4, here's how many things to order. If you're feeding a family of 6, here's how many things to order. And it would solve that problem of, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to be ordering.
Yeah.
Um, but then we partnered with a group called Food for Talk, and there were questions that you could ask your family around the dinner table to have a more satisfying and interactive family dining experience. So it was looking at all the ways that DNA could show up in ways that were going to solve our problems.
That's so impactful because rather than taking the traditional approach of saying, well, these products, these services, whatever, they're selling, they're doing well, they'll come back. You're saying, no, like let's look at what we already have and how do we repackage it and listen to our customers to make it actually grow. So we're not just
Yeah.
sitting here and waiting for something to happen. And I think a lot of business business leaders who are trying to either grow their own business or get sales for the brand that they work with, they might be just doing the same thing over and over again. So I'm loving these creative ideas to hopefully inspire those listening to look a little bit deeper than what the numbers might be saying or what they might be hearing from other people. Calculator, very smart. I would have loved that too because
Yeah.
I can't calculate for the life of me in general. So when you're hungry too, you're stressed. So you're like, I got to order something. That's like you're solving problems. You're solving
Yeah.
problems, which equals sales. I love that so much. So, you know, diving more deeply into that, like, how do you balance making these customer centric innovations while also maintaining brand integrity? I'm sure there's push and pull when you've worked with a brand and you've given an idea like this and they're kind of like, well, why do we need to do that, right? So like what's the balance of that?
So interestingly enough, there's a story with a startup spirits brand that I worked with, and they're just in the building phase, and they initially came to our work session with the idea that they were going to launch their product in this bottle. They were in love with this bottle, and they thought this bottle is going to look fantastic on the shelf. And they had a name, and they loved this name, and they loved the meaning behind this name. But as we dug deeper into their why as a brand and what they were, that they were entering a really, really crowded and continues to be crowded category. And fundamentally, these two things were out of step with the biggest elements of their story as founders and what would be the ultimate credibility of their product. So it's a lesson for, and they did away with the bottle, and they're holding on to the name with the potential that we're going to use it in a different way as they grow that helps fulfill their brand mission. But they changed the name of the company. And we decided out of the discussion what their flagship product was going to be, what their first product was going to be. And that was a really good sense of brand integrity balanced with innovation. They had innovation first, and it was going to be very different, but it didn't fit where the brand was going. On the flip side, even in Papa John's, as we were talking about product innovation, our former CEO, he's now at Shake Shack, Rob Lynch, took the guardrails off of our product innovation. There was always a belief that we couldn't touch the pizza dough because it was our most central and most differentiated part of the product. And it is still my favorite pizza dough. It's got 6 simple ingredients. There's nothing artificial. So I'm still a huge brand evangelist for Papa John's and probably always will be. But the difference was we were also known as a brand that was about quality, and the ultimate lovers of pizza loved Papa John's. And so the way that it was okay to remove the guardrails for innovation is that we weren't going to change the dough itself, the makeup of the dough itself. We were going to change the things, that the way that we used it and the variety of pizzas that we used it for, with the ultimate aim of serving the people who were absolutely crazy mad for pizza the way we were. And so that launched garlic sauce topped pizza, and then that launched stuffed crust pizza, and it launched a whole lot of other innovations around the dough because we allowed ourselves just to free up one constraint in service of our customer.
Wow, I love that. And I think it's so important to, when considering innovation for the brand, that you don't have to necessarily change everything, right?
Right.
I think when some leaders hear innovation, they go, "Oh boy, we're just going to try to change everything that we're doing." And
Yeah.
no, it's like what you said. Sometimes there's one small piece that can be iterated that can have an equal output level of success, right? So, just to dive into that a little bit further, because I'm curious, if you're working with a brand who is coming to you and they're saying, hey, like we don't necessarily have a physical product, but we have a service, for
Hmm.
example. And we're trying to differentiate, and this could mean a lot of different things. But what's the first question you would ask them to ask themselves when they're working on going through that differentiation journey for their brand and their development?
Once again, it comes back down to what elements, if you took them away, it would cease to be you. So in the Papa John's example, the question we asked ourselves was, okay, if there's Pizza Hut and there's Domino's and there's Little Caesars and there's Papa John's, what are all the things that they have in common? Now, what are all the things that we believe are unique and different about our brand? And we started listing all of them. And then we drilled down to, okay, but wait, what of these things, if we took them away, would it cease to be Papa John's? And are we sure? And then we'd have those up. And we continue to say, okay, could Domino's say this? Could Pizza Hut say this? It's a process of interrogating yourself so deeply. I joke, when I know I'm succeeding is when whomever I'm working with wants to throw things at me because they get so frustrated that I'm asking the question again and again and again. And
Yes.
it applies to all businesses. It applies to service businesses.
Right.
Think about how hotels had to react differently when their online reservations
Mm,
started being usurped by Expedia or Travelocity or Trivago or all of
true.
those. They had to start saying, okay, well, then what is the benefit of booking directly with us instead of these fees? How do we think about our loyalty programs when you can book this room here or you can book this room here, and it may be cheaper to book this room here? How do we have to change and do things differently, and what can we do differently?
I
So
it's
yeah, it doesn't matter whether it's a physical product or it's an online website. It's truly about the things that only you can do or
wow.
only you are.
Yes, yes, and that got me thinking. I was just remembering there were a few times where when initially Expedia and hotels.com and all those things came out, that I was trying to use those. And now I'm like, well, why don't I use them now? And it's because of what you said. I'm a Marriott Bonvoy member, for example, and that loyalty and the perks that I get there, I can't get from those other
Yeah.
websites, right? So that's such a great example in addition to the other ones that you provided. And yeah, I think a lot of us get kind of hung up on, oh well, this is a product business, or this is a service business, and I can't do what this business does because that's not the type of industry that we're in. But what you're saying is true. At the end of the day, like, it's about businesses are people selling and working with other people, and we
Yeah.
all think and act in that way, right?
You are always trying to capture the attention, the dollars, and the loyalty of a customer.
Mm,
And whatever that customer group looks like, or whatever that type of customer for a particular product. I once said to somebody who was asking me about advertising, I said, advertising ultimately is to create the desire for someone to take an action, desire and motivation to take an action. That's
mm.
what you're trying to do. And sometimes the motivation or the action is just to have them top of mind. Sometimes it's to want to be curious to find out more. Sometimes it's to move them from consideration to action. You know, any sort of point in the funnel, you're motivating them to take whatever that next action is. And then once they've taken that action, then you want to start it all over again. So, what are you doing even during the sale and after the sale to get people to want to make that next decision or action with you and to tell other people?
Or even upsell too. Like, I
Yeah,
think that's so true. I think we get hung up on the sale itself. We get the sale and then we go, woohoo! And then we just like let it go
yeah,
out into the ether. And then there's so much more that could
yeah.
come from that. Wow, I could talk to you about this for like three hours, which is why you're not.
I could geek out about it forever. I'm always liking geeking out on marketing and brand.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Well, let's kind of move forward a little bit into something that I've been talking to a lot of people about lately, which is um, you know, giving back or doing work with other people or mentorship. I think as an entrepreneur now, you're in your entrepreneurship journey. I think taking moments to either give back to the community or find time for yourself is super important. And I don't know if this is correct, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw that you were an advisor to C-suite leaders and junior marketers, and you served on a board and like mentored other people. So what's that experience like for you?
I've always said that mentorship is a two-way street. And if you as a mentor are not getting as much out of it, sometimes even more, you're probably not doing it right. Because I have a couple of mentor-mentee relationships to that I still do with folks, and um, they're conversations. They're conversations. Sometimes they're conversations around a particular topic or a particular trend or a project that they're working on or a project that I'm working on. But I always walk away feeling smarter and feeling a little bit more informed from the interaction. So I seek out the opportunity to talk to people who either have perspectives that I don't, or are living in a different consumer environment than I am. Meaning, I spend time with millennials and with Gen Zs because I'm a Gen X. And it gives me the chance to hear their perspectives and maybe see consumers a little bit differently as well, but also trends and sites and things in culture that I might miss otherwise. I'm not going to pretend that I'm ever going to be using the terms Riz and other stuff, but I want to
That's great.
know. I want to know
Yes,
what they are. You know, it would
right.
be cringy if I started talking like a Gen Zer,
Well,
but
my brother is definitely 100% Gen Z, and anytime I try to use some of the slang, he's already rolling his eyes
he's
at
like,
me.
stop,
So he's like, "Stop!
please
I
stop,
don't. What's going on?" Yeah,
please stop.
no, but it's
But
important. You're
yeah,
right. It's important to know, and I think being in touch with the next generation and being aware of it is enriching individually, but also for business too, because the commercials and the ads that you see that are out of touch are so out of touch, and
yeah,
you can see right through them. You
yeah.
know.
I always call it trying too hard. I think,
Yes.
ooh, are they trying too hard?
They're
The
trying
other
too hard.
thing, the other thing you'll hear me say if I don't particularly like an ad
Yeah.
is, I hope they tested that.
Oh, okay. That's the data side. That's the
Yeah,
data side of it.
because I don't have to like the ad if I'm not the target audience.
Right.
One of the ad campaigns I still hate with a passion is for Axe body spray.
Yes.
But you know
You
what?
said
That's okay.
it.
I'm a Gen X woman. I'm
Yes.
not the target. It
Yes.
works like crazy. It's
Yes.
great for the target. I
Yes.
may not like it, but that's okay.
Yes.
And a lot of times, especially when I was working with franchisees, both in KFC and in Papa John's,
Yes.
the first thing I would say is, well, if they say, "Oh, I don't know that I like it," I'd say, well, then would your kids like it, or would your grandkids like it?"
Right.
Or on the flip side, the best feedback I could get was, "Oh man, I showed that commercial to my grandson and he loved it." And I go, "Whew,
We
okay."
tested it. We tested it. It worked. It
Yeah.
worked.
And it really was about when it was a really big bet, how
Mhm.
could we test it to get some confidence that we were headed in the right direction?
Well, that's the beauty
Yeah,
of like being creative and telling stories, but also getting the data you need so that it's not 100% a gamble. Because at the end of the day, you have to make money off of these stories and these ads that we're making. We have to get
yeah.
results, right? So I think it's a really cool balance. But on the flip side of that, I'm sure throughout working and the roles that you have, it's not always easy to hit these numbers. It's not always easy to come up with these ideas. I mean, it's truly a journey. And if you could go back in time and tell yourself back then what you know now about business, what advice would you give yourself?
Honestly, it would be, don't be afraid to be authentically you. And that's probably more of advice on how I show up in my roles. But the times that I failed and the times where I made decisions that weren't the best decisions for a business or for a campaign, they typically was because I was trying to be someone I wasn't, or assuming the thinking of someone else instead of me. And um, you know, the perspective that I bring is unique. The perspective that I bring is valuable. My curiosity and the questions I ask and the way that I can apply the information that I get from people is part of my superpower. I serve in a community leadership accelerator, and we're tackling a really big, thorny community problem right now. And we were struggling as a team yesterday. We met yesterday, and we were struggling as a team yesterday to get to a statement about what it was we were doing and what it was we wanted to do. And I was asking questions of a couple of people on the group, and someone said something that I then repeated to the crowd, to the group again, and another person picked that up and wrote exactly what we needed, wrote a perfect introduction line. And I thought to myself, okay, my value in that interaction wasn't that I came up with that line. It was that I was asking questions and pulling different pieces of the puzzle out from different people in the group. And that orchestration happens to be what I'd consider one of my best and greatest superpowers is the ability to orchestrate. So that's not necessarily what I embraced early in my career. I thought I had to have all the answers. I thought I had to be the one to come up with all the ideas, when I started to realize that no, my strength is helping bring some diverse people and diverse thinking around the table to pull those ideas out and to get to a better place together.
That's such a powerful lesson. I feel like I needed to hear that because I'm in the season of my life where I do. I feel like I have to have the answers. I feel like I have to have the ideas. And I think many people maybe early in their entrepreneurship journey feel like they have to act and be a certain way.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I post a lot on LinkedIn, and I'm trying to lean in more to the Disney business, whatever fun
Yeah.
vibe, because guess what? That's just who I am. I
Yep.
can't look like Elena or Grant Cardone or Sirius and like Tony Robbins. Like that's not even my essence. And
Yeah.
when I do it, it looks silly when I try. So it's like what you're saying. It's embracing who you are, and also, figuring out what your superpower is of being able to ask the right questions. It takes a little bit of bravery too, because as a woman in business, sometimes, from my experience, if you ask too many questions, you start, and it's not in all environments in all rooms, but people start saying, oh well, you're being difficult, or oh you're asking a lot, or whatever. So being that is your superpower and you're owning it is very inspiring as well too, because we don't have to have all the answers all the time.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, you know, we have not as much time left, so oh my goodness, we should do like a part two someday or something. um but let's kind of skip ahead a bit here and get into the fun Disney questions,
The
right? We got
Disney-esque part of
the
our
Disney-esque
discussion.
part of the conversation, right? So this is the Disney part, right? So just for fun, do you have a Disney character or film that's like your top three or your favorite by any
Oh
chance?
yeah, without a doubt. And again, I said that I'm Gen X, And so I have probably two unusual films
Let's see if I know them.
for the Disney canon
Okay.
that are my favorites. Robin Hood.
Robin Hood's a good
Robin Hood.
one.
I can still sing ooh la li golly, what a day. Ooh la li ooh la.
I like it.
I
I love that
love
one.
the day that that movie was finally available on home video. I was so excited and so thrilled to actually start watching it again. And the Aristocats.
Oh my gosh.
And
Top tier.
the first time I got to meet Marie, so I still go back to Epcot every year for the Food and Wine Festival. One of the bridesmaids from our wedding, she and her husband live in Orlando, and
Aw.
they set up the date, and we all fly in. And
Love
the day that I saw Marie in France and got to take a picture with
that.
Marie in France, was the highlight for me.
That's amazing. Well, I'm trying to go to Food and Wine, so maybe we'll bump into each other
Yeah.
this year. But I love Marie too, and actually watching that movie is what inspired me to start learning piano as a kid, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm not
very
as good
cool.
as the Aristocats, but it's good. Okay, this is my favorite question I want to ask you as we wrap up. So it's combining the Disney, a little bit of creativity, and then some of the business stuff too, right? So let's pretend that Princess and the Frog. Okay, if you've not seen it, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast. Sorry, but if you haven't seen it, it's about the age old story of like she's supposed to kiss the frog, and then like everything is better, right? Well, the Disney take on it is it's the opposite. The frog turns out to be the annoying guy, and then she like finds herself and starts her own business. Actually, watch the movie because that's a really bad summary of it. But anyways, it's a great movie. So anyways, Tiana from Princess and the Frog, she's like, "Hey, what's up, Melissa?" She's asking you, and she wants to hire you to help expand her restaurant, her reach from New Orleans to more locations in the US. So that's all she has. That's the starting point she has. She has a dream. She has a restaurant. She has great food, great brand. So, what are some questions that you have for her? And how would you start your little consulting process with her? What would you do?
So the first thing, and it's going to sound a little bit like a broken record, but I'm gonna start talking to her about her brand DNA. You
Okay.
know,
Okay.
what is your there's lots of New Orleans cuisine, there's
Yes.
lots of New Orleans food and lots of restaurants that serve it.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your unique DNA? What are the things that truly differentiate you both within New Orleans?
Mm-hmm.
So what makes you unique amongst New Orleans restaurants? What makes you as Princess Tiana? What is your story and why do you make the food you make? Now, how can we draw your DNA from that and decide what the things within that experience are going to look and feel like when you drop it into Buffalo, New York? In
Okay.
Buffalo, New York, how is it going to feel like your restaurant? What are those magic things?
Well,
And then we'll start talking about how that DNA shows up in every touch point. Are there ways you greet customers?
mm,
Is there specific pillars within your social media content? What menu items are you going to have that show off your DNA? What are the magic elements? The furniture, the build out of the restaurant, the signage, the branding, the colors, what types of things are truly going to indicate your restaurant? And how do we then make sure that we don't lose that as we scale to all of these places?
that's so good. And she's gonna be like, "That's amazing, Melissa. Actually, what we do is we have a crocodile greeting us at the door, so that's already crazy. Second thing, we have a dinner show every night, and we have waitresses in full New Orleans outfits handing out the beignets to everyone upon walking in the restaurant. And then you're gonna probably be like, "Wow, yeah, we have some stuff to market for sure."
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Right? Wow. Yeah, yeah. If a crocodile opened the door into a restaurant that I went to, though, I don't know if I'd go in. We'd have to suss that one out with her a little
Well,
bit.
but the
Oh.
entrance could be the crocodile. You're walking into
Oh,
the crocodile's
yes.
mouth.
Yes.
You know,
Okay.
or the crocodile there could be two crocodiles at either door when you open up and you're walking past the crocodiles, or when you walk through, it triggers the crocodile
Like,
voice welcoming
wow.
you and greeting
Wow.
you. There's
Goosebumps.
all sorts of
Yes.
little things you can do.
Well, how sustainable is it to have a dinner show every night? Do you think I can actually do that as fake Tiana, Melissa?
Maybe. That makes your difficulty, that makes it a real difficulty in hiring people. You're going to have a
Oh,
harder time hiring people because you're going to have, or it just means you're going to have to locate in places where there's a large community of performers
like New York, for
that you can tap.
example.
Exactly. It might say, okay, are you okay with only having 10 restaurants across the country and that's your ceiling? Or
Mm,
it's strategy ultimately is about a series of choices, and
mm.
so that's where also the numbers come in. We'd together run the numbers of, okay, if we wanted to keep the show element and we only did 10 to 20 restaurants at our ceiling and we became this size company, is that okay? Or if we want to be 500 restaurants all across the world, then if we take that out, how could we replicate the feeling of that in a different way? And maybe we use alternative
Technology?
reality. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you have a little show on your table that gets triggered by your phone and Snapchat on your phone.
Oh my
So
God, I love that so much. We need to do more of these like fake. I want to brand more like Disney characters in their businesses as exercises. This is so fun.
I like that. It's fun.
It's great. Thank you so much, Melissa. You have a plenty of wealth of knowledge to share. And if anyone wants to connect with you, learn more about you, your business, or even work with you, what's the best way that they could do that? How can they contact you?
They can book a discovery call right online with me at my website, which is getathirdarm.com. I like having a call to action as my website, but it's spelled just like it sounds. Get a third, spelled out THIRD arm.com. And there's a link you can click to book an appointment, book a 15-minute discovery call, or you can certainly follow me on LinkedIn, Melissa Richards Person. And I talk all week about marketing, brand strategy. I have Foodie Friday, where I talk about
Ooh, I like
a
that.
food and beverage or a restaurant concept, and what lessons we can learn and draw. And yeah, and I love, and on Hype Woman Wednesday, I always talk up women-owned businesses and female leaders. So yeah,
I love that. We're gonna have to do a foodie chat one time, maybe with
love it.
pizza. Because after this conversation, I really want pizza. I'm not gonna lie to you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. That's how good of her at her job she is. She made me want pizza. She made me want KFC, maybe Starbucks. The foods, they all are there. Well,
I highly recommend Papa John's stuffed crust pizza.
oh my gosh, let's go. Let's do it. Papa John's, sponsor me. Just kidding. Maybe not really. Okay. Well, have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much, Melissa. And I hope everyone has, learned a thing or two from here. And I'm sure you have. And if you haven't, go listen to more of Melissa because I probably did more talking than she did. That's the only reason why. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. You've been listening to Bippity Boppity Business. Like what you hear so far? Leave us a review in Apple or listen to us anywhere you prefer listening to your podcast. Until next time, have a magical day.